Okay, we are live. Hey, y'all.
What's going
Welcome
on?
to Biden Harris Watch. I'm going to wait for some people to comment, chime in. We're going to have Drew and Sydney popping in throughout the show. So don't be alarmed that you only see three of us on here right now. Happy Friday. Happy, I don't know, 30 some days before the election. How many more days we got? 32? Is it 32 today? 32.
32. Lord God,
32
it's
more days. That's it. Lord,
literally a month.
help us.
Y'all, I don't know if y'all are stressing or not, but I just got me an energy drink
Mm-hmm.
because, you just need to refuel sometimes with all the stuff that goes on. It seems like there's always something breaking every few minutes. So,
Yeah, lots of breaking news today. Still, even throughout the evening. All right, I'm gonna turn it over to you, Kenny. Go ahead and get it started because people ain't got all night to be up on here.
We do
show
not.
okay, welcome to Biden Harris Watch, y'all. It's your boy Kenny, Too Raw, Too Real. And here with my lovely panel, Drew Comments. What's up? What's going on?
What's going on with y'all, man? Look, a lot of happenings happening in the happening. So we gotta make sure we keep y'all abreast of what's happening. You did, man. Let's just a little over a month. Let's get to it.
How you feeling today, Miss Blazer? Maya Contreras.
I'm good. I'm drinking a gin and tonic because it's been a long day. It's been a long day. So I'm ready to get into it. But I needed to unwind. I'm sorry. Gatorade would not do the trick for me right now.
I completely understand, okay? You got to get it in where you can fit it in. And Reese, how you feeling tonight, girl?
I'm feeling all right. I'm staying hydrated with my Be a Good Human. Probably can't see that cup. That's not tone policing, people, to be clear. And I have the first but not the last Kamala shirt. It's official from JoeBiden.com. Only took almost 2 months to get here, but I'm representing on as we go into this home stretch for the election.
It's better late than never. Some people still ain't get their stuff yet.
I
But
know.
hey, it's a blessing of all things. And I'm sitting here looking at the pink Biden Harris sweatshirt. What is that going
That's
on? Is that
cute,
my girl
Sydney.
Sydney A? How you feeling, girl?
What up, world? I am back. Yes, I am rocking my new Biden Harris 2020 joint. You feel me? This was courtesy of Mina. She posted a link to this particular sweatshirt. So if y'all want to go to her page, Mina Harris, that's Kamala's niece. So I ended up with it and I love it. It's got the little Barbie logo going on, shout out to Nicki Minaj, shout out to Barbie, you feel me?
Yeah, and it's matching the nails. Ain't them pink too? Oh my goodness.
Yes, I've
She
been
said she had to
feeling
make a statement.
I've been feeling very like the fall needs a little more like I don't know, live bright colors, I guess.
Bubbly
Lively
colors.
Yeah, so
About color my hair.
Oh, it's
yes,
October.
exactly. I was inspired by you, Kenny. Let's get it.
Well, it's October though. It's October. It's breast cancer awareness
It
month.
is.
Yes,
So
it
It is. And
is.
my mother's a breast cancer survivor. So shout out to all the survivors out there. Breast cancer awareness
fantastic.
month.
Yeah,
Yes,
next
we are
week.
in remission now. My mother's going on 8 years in remission.
Oh
Awesome.
So
wow.
yeah,
That's
Fantastic.
awesome.
Next week I'm wearing pink. That's it. That's my fault. That's my bad today.
I
My
love
fault,
it.
y'all.
So that's the way we're gonna bring in October for my mother and all the survivors out there. Happy Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And my best friend, one of my best friends is a survivor as well. And she's going on 7 years. So 7 years in remission. My mother and my
Oh
best friend.
yes, that's a blessing.
Amen.
All right, y'all. Let's get into these topics. I know y'all are already ready, and y'all know we got a lot of stuff to say. So we're gonna go right for the jugular. What did you guys think of the firestorm that was that debate a few days ago? What's your thoughts? Anybody can chime in at this time.
I,
Go ahead, Reese.
I was gonna say, I thought it was disgraceful, and apparently, it was beyond being unproductive and a national embarrassment. It unnecessarily exposed Joe Biden and Dr. Joe Biden to COVID super spreaders such as Trump and his entourage. And so it's just a disgrace for so many levels. I think Joe Biden held his own to the extent that you can against a complete unhinged maniac. But I'm of the mindset that we don't need to do more presidential debates. I mean, I'm okay with the vice presidential debate going ahead as planned. I think it should be virtual, even though I think it's breaking news that they have successfully made it so that Mike Pence and Kamala Harris will be 12 feet apart during the debate. Still indoors though, so I still think there's a little bit of a risk there. But I just think it was an embarrassment. It was a global embarrassment.
It certainly was. I'm gonna go ahead and jump on this as well. It's interesting though. It was a tough spot to be in if you're Joe Biden, if you think about it, because there's an adage that says never argue with a fool, because from a distance no one can tell the difference. Now, Joe is in a tough spot because conventional wisdom would say don't do the debate, and Nancy Pelosi was actually on board with that idea. I wouldn't debate nothing. I wouldn't give him the time of day. F that dude. Like, that literally what she said. I'm sure she said it behind closed door. I think, Nancy Pelosi listens to Mobb Deep in her downtime. But the thing is, Joe Biden also had precedents to worry about as well. And he was just like, man, like, there is still a certain way that we're supposed to do things in this country. And it's like, do I go off, the lessons of my grandmama, or do I go off of, what the history of this country is as far as presidential debates? You want to put your platform out, because remember, there are still parts of Joe Biden's platform that people don't know and don't understand, have been asking the same questions. Of course, they're on his website, but the debate should have been a forum for him to be at least like, listen, let me just speak my piece as much as I can. I know I'm dealing with a child on the other side, but if I can just get enough out. I don't think even Joe Biden could have predicted the level of childlike mannerisms from Donald Trump. It was like being up there with a 6-year-old. Seriously, like a 6-year-old who ain't never had a strap to their behind. If you don't believe in corporal punishment, you may be upset about that. But I'm just gonna tell you the truth. He need his behind. Like, I'm telling you, that would have been a belt. But in any regard, so it was in a position where he tried to honor tradition. He presented himself in the professional way that a presidential candidate should, and he was met with the first grade. And from that point, it was just a firestorm, an S storm from that. So it was a catch-22 for Joe. But he revealed a little bit of himself, especially when he told him to shut up. Because the real Joe Biden, if this was 1988, if this is 1995 Joe Biden, he would have gone up to him. Want to step outside? I put my foot in you. So he's matured. We call that growth. But yeah, that was my comment.
Some opportunities, because to your point, I mean, I don't recall him saying go to joebiden.com one time. And so I don't think that he really got much of a substantive message across. I think he tried when he could speak for 20 seconds uninterrupted. He had a solid 20 seconds, 30 seconds, but I wonder if they came into the debate with a strategy of hitting certain points. I thought that they were, okay. He was okay, better to okay on healthcare, for instance. I thought his race answers were a lot better than I expected them to be, given that the way that I know that Wallace was setting it up. But I think he was rattled and taken off his game, and he didn't really pack as much of a punch in terms of delivering his agenda throughout the thing. Chris Wallace said at some point, even to Trump, well, I'm going to ask you the question, you can answer it however you want to answer it. And I think that if Joe Biden had taken that approach, that would have been a little bit more impactful for him versus really kind of being tuned into the interruptions that Trump was doing, as well as really more so letting Chris Wallace drive all of his talking points. He should have came with his own message and really stuck to that and pivoted a lot more, instead of really just kind of getting bogged down in what was being thrown in his ear.
Well, I think that was Trump's entire game plan in this entire debate. I think his game plan was to make sure that Joe Biden did not talk about his agenda, he couldn't literally give his message to everyone in America because he knew that everyone would be watching. And for all those naysayers that says Joe Biden doesn't have a Black agenda, Joe Biden doesn't have anything for healthcare, Joe Biden doesn't have anything for student loan debt, this was Trump's literally plan to try to stop him and cut him at the heels. So, I mean, I think, yeah, you can say it's successful. However, I mean, Trump is dropping in the polls after the debate. So, I mean, a lot of people saw that going on. And then literally, we didn't really get anything, as you guys said before, anything productive or anything substantive throughout this entire debate. What I want, everybody else watching to understand, especially I want, the people who are going to be conducting the next debate to make sure that you guys have just a time limit and also be able to cut people's mics when they're interrupting other people. And I just hope that Chris Wallace is not going to be hosting any more debates from now on, because I was very disappointed. You can't argue with, just the moderator the entire time and argue with everybody on stage and just disrespect completely everyone and the American people, and you not hold Donald Trump accountable. So we're gonna need them to actually get on their game plan, because Donald Trump is literally, we don't know what he's gonna do next. Anybody got any more for closing remarks? We got like 3 more minutes.
I'll say really quickly that I think Joe Biden was given an almost an impossible task that night to get his talking points through. I think that where he failed was when Trump was baiting him with law and order. I mean, we know that law and order is a pejorative term. It's a racist term. It's a dog whistle. And he wasn't able to say, listen, I believe in law enforcement, but I believe in racial justice or social justice, or however he wanted to use terminology that wouldn't perhaps seem too leftist or extreme. I felt like Joe Biden should have been prepared for that. Instead, he was baited. His answer ended up being, I believe in law and order with justice, which was kind of this half answer. No one is expecting Joe Biden to come in and be this uber liberal and say all these things, but he has to be solid on issues of race and anti-Blackness. And that's where he wasn't prepared. However, I don't know. I've never been screamed at for 90 minutes straight in my entire life. I mean, so I don't know how well I would have been able to hold it together. I will say this in conclusion. Trump it was his tactic to interrupt Biden every time Biden brought up taxes or he was about to say something really cogent. Trump went into to interrupt it. I know that that's what his team most likely told him to do. It's just Trump went so overboard. It really did push people away from him. It's already reflected in the polling from Georgia. Did everybody see that polling from Georgia? It's fabulous. It swung over to Biden by more than 2 points. I mean, he's leading by 2 points, but Trump was leading before. So it has shown an instability that even some of his base and independents and there was only 3 to 5% of people that were undecided, swung them over to Joe Biden. They just saw something there that was just too toxic for even them to deal with.
Do you think it could have possibly been the fact that he refused to denounce the Proud Boys? He told them to, stand down and stand by.
I think that people use that I think people use that as an excuse of why they're pushing away from Trump. They have never had a problem with his white supremacy before. Trump has never denounced white supremacy before. So when people go, oh, I'm really just upset by that. I'm like, no, you're fucking not. Sorry for the cussing, but no, you're not. You know what I mean? You've watched him be a white supremacist. You've watched him say that there's good people on both sides. So I don't really buy that. It's one of those things. Let me just conclude with this as well, because I got into a scary thread conversation with an ex-NYPD captain who was spewing QAnon talking points and who was for Trump. That was frightening. That's a different story. But what I'm saying is his base wants to have this idea that they're not racist while being racist. And so that is maybe why they were like a little bit uncomfortable, because this little shell of denial that they've been able to live under, Trump firmly removed that tiny veneer that they had left.
So it's that I'm not racist, but crowd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not racist,
I
but
would have voted for Obama for a third term.
Well, I think though, one of the concerns that I do have is that, you know, I've said this a million times that this is not a conversion election. And the Republicans in particular know that this is a suppression election. And with Trump just being a complete disgrace and a maniac, I think he might have turned people off really and honestly to the process altogether. In particular, because I don't think that Joe Biden was as strong as you know, as people might have expected him to be. I think that he obviously was coherent, and he was a lot of things that people said he was going to be senile and he was going to be all this other kind of stuff, but it just wasn't a good look, just period. And we know that the people who are the disaffected voters, the people who are a little bit apathetic, the whole, oh, both sides, or it doesn't make a difference crowd, watching that is not going to find any reason to be encouraged. And so that's one of my concerns. I know I got all kinds of text messages from people that aren't like my normal, like political, like, hey, we text and we keep up with stuff. People were just like, oh my God, what was that? Not to say that they won't vote, but I do think that just in your conversations with your neighbors or with your family or with your friends, just check in with them. Don't assume that people are so turned off that they're going to vote for Biden, because there are some people that will just not vote at all. So continue to engage in people that you know offline, not just online, and make sure that they understand that their vote matters. And regardless of how Trump has debased the process, we still have to vote like our life depends on it.
That's the best way to end it right there, Reese. But since we're talking about debates going forward, I know we have October 7th. I got it marked in my calendar. I don't care where I'm going to be, but I know where I'm going to be is right in front of the TV watching Kamala Harris tear Pence apart. So what suggestions do we need to give our girl going forward into this debate? We already know Kamala Harris is a master debater. Gotta, you know, split that up. But there are certain things that I already know is going to be hit, you know, when it comes to her record and stuff like that. So what would you guys' suggestion be for Kamala Harris going forward to this debate? I'm gonna go probably fourth. So I'm gonna start with you, Reese.
Pivot will be one of my suggestions. You know, don't get bogged down into whatever is thrown at you. Obviously, though, don't get tulsi. So if Pence, who's going to lie, he's going to be, you know, slimy and sleazy, address what he says. If he says that's a lie, that's not true, that's untrue, make sure that you speak that very clearly, and then pivot if you have to. Because honestly, a lot of people, once they hear that's a lie, all that explaining and you don't even need to do all that. But go on ahead and just state unequivocally that's a lie, that's untrue, that is not accurate, and then pivot and stick to your message. Come in there with a strong economic message, with a strong COVID message, with a strong healthcare message. And if Mike throws a punch, you got to punch him back even harder. But when you punch him back, somebody in the car, Ruben says, like a boxer, stick and move. That's what I want to see from Kamala. I want to see her sticking and moving. But like I said, the most important thing, that's a lie. If you don't say nothing else, that's a lie. And then you go on ahead and you really drill home the message. Plug JoeBiden.com too. That would not hurt. Okay, at least do that, because you're not going to be able to get all your talking points out. But pivot, address lies as lies, and pivot and have a coherent message.
I also think that, well, one of the things I want to keep in mind is that when you are an extremely productive individual, whether you are in, you know, law or law enforcement or even sports, sometimes you don't know the details of your own statistics. If you were to ask Steph Curry right now how many 3-pointers he made his rookie year, he probably could not tell you. You couldn't, I'm just saying, like, you would not be able to ask Emmitt Smith, for instance, how many yards did you average against the Cleveland Browns? Like, he probably won't know that off top, even though there are fanatics who do know that. And it's probably something very impressive. You know, that sort of thing. How many yards did you average in Texas Stadium? Things like that. So when Kamala Harris, you know, I would just say, hey, just gloss back over what you've actually done. You're from a generation, and she's from a time when people didn't really, and Bakari Sellers made this point, that they didn't really brag on themselves. They kind of let the work speak for themselves. We in a new era now. Go ahead, be picture perfect, beautiful, and talk your stuff. You do what I'm saying? And gloss back over look at the numbers of what you've actually done. It's amazing. In the moment, you don't recognize it, but then when you look back, but as they say in church, when I look back over from where I came from, I'm amazed at where the Lord has brought me from. You know, it's something to that effect. So go ahead and look at the details. Look at those footprints in the sand and see when there's only one set of footprints that God was. I'm not going to get into a sermon, but look at what you've done. And you know, and you know, I'm sure that the team has those numbers on deck. They got Reese's threads. They got my videos. They got, you know, everything that we've tweeted out. So you know, just gloss over that. Ooh, remember that number and throw that out there. That's the only thing I can say. Also, learn the word cap. If he says anything, which is crazy, it's so convenient. It's so convenient. It's great.
Do not
cap.
listen to Drew. Do not say cap because they will
Just say
say
cap.
that you are pandering. Do not listen.
That
to
is
Drew.
not pandering. You
Do not listen
say
to
cap.
Drew.
Listen,
You
if he
stay
says
on your
anything,
stuff.
if he says anything, cap, it's very convenient. That's all I'm saying. That's all I got.
I'll go next. I will say this. First of all, Mike Pence wasn't originally the pick for VP. There was a long line of people that they considered beforehand. I'm sure you guys heard the story about Ivanka Trump being considered, but really Newt Gingrich was being considered to be vice president. The only problem is Newt Gingrich and Trump are very similar, a very bombastic nature. The difference is Newt Gingrich is actually pretty brilliant and Trump is not. Newt Gingrich suggested that he pick Mike Pence, actually, instead, because Mike Pence offered this kind of false puritanical balance to Trump's philandering and sexual harassment and abuse. And Pence has has tried to create this aura of purity. Well, all of it's BS, right? It's bullshit. So what Kamala Harris needs to call out his hypocrisy. She needs to call out the fact that his policies are anti-Christian. She needs to right away eliminate the purity standards for him, show how he's actually harmed communities in Indiana. She needs to specifically dig a massive hole for him. Then she needs to talk in sound bites. She needs to be able to say, "This is the Black maternal health care that I'm going to do. This is what the Biden Harris administration is going to do. We're going to be focusing on this group. We're going to be focusing on this group." She needs to make sure to include the disability community, the Native community. She's going to have to hit all of those points rather quickly and talk about how all of these policies are helping all of America. Okay, so she'll need to talk in sound bites and be quick. And she needs. I think I said this already, but I'm going to say it again. She needs to have one or two Christian quotes ready to go because because Pence is going to be like, you know, in Matthew 24, they say that the Lord, and she's going to say, guess what? And then just counter it right away. Because what he's going to try to appeal to is that evangelical base that has been running away from Trump right now. And I know that Kamala will have no issue being able to quote that. And it still won't be this thing where she's trying to combine church and state. She can still say, listen, I believe in the separation of church and state. But I also believe that these teachings are supposed to be helping everyone. Okay.
And she does say that. Wait, what is one thing? She does have that story that she's been telling like since the poverty town hall with Reverend Dr. Barbara about, you know, the neighbor and things like that. So that's a good suggestion, Maya. But I know she's spoken in that manner before.
Absolutely. And just to kind of piggyback off of what you were saying, Maya, earlier, very quickly, you know, Kamala has an advantage just from my experience with you know, Mike Pence being from Illinois. I have friends who were in Indiana during his time as governor, and it was a complete shit show. He was responsible for an HIV outbreak in Southern Indiana near the Indianapolis area where my friends are from. And it was a nightmare for a lot of people that I know personally. So I know for a fact that, you know, if Kamala just sticks to kind of like what is already done, she can get through the murkiness of the lies and she can get through, you know, some of the the misrepresentation of her record that they always love to go to. That's a big go-to for everyone who debates her, is, you know, they try to misrepresent her record, or they try to act like they're more of an ally to the Black community than she ever was, or anything like that. Well, Mike Pence was responsible for an HIV outbreak that affected multiple Black and brown, you know, members of, you know, the, you know, or citizens of Indiana. And that was a big deal. He was also, you know, a part of, you know, why the Indianapolis police, you know, have been so aggressive towards, you know, Black and brown folks in the area. So there's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of truth to, you know, Mike Pence's record that can be put against any misrepresentation of Kamala's record that he may try to bring. And that's really just kind of like, you know, what I personally believe would give her an advantage in this particular debate.
Yeah, she could also point out the demise, well, the improvement of the Indiana State Police ever since Mike Pence is no longer governor, because they doing a doggone good job since he got out the way. So
yeah, that's true.
Reese, I think you had something else to say, right? You want to chime in?
But you can go first, because
Okay.
you're gonna make the point.
Okay, so me personally, they're already expecting you to go, you know, going in swinging. So I would just go in swinging, honestly, because they already expecting it. They're gonna paint you out as an angry Black woman, so you know you might as well go ahead and embrace it. But you also have to literally pick up the ball that Joe Biden had fumbled in the first debate. You do have to basically talk about your agenda. But what I want you to do, honestly, is I want you to call out all the lies that they've been spreading, saying that, okay, Donald Trump has done so much for Black people. Talk about where we're at right now. Not just that, but they also give him credit for the HBCU funding that you negotiated. So take credit for the things that you did. So that way people aren't steady using these narratives saying that, you know, Donald Trump has done so much for the Black community when he hasn't. He has done things for the Black community, yes. Pretty much detrimental things, because right now we're the highest mortality rate. So yeah, he's done things for the Black community. Call him out on that as well. So me personally, I just feel that they're going to come for your record. You're going to have to be able to hit these talking points, move very quickly, but you also need to tell them exactly what you did, exactly what Drew said earlier. You have to talk about what you did. You have to take that credit. I know it's hard to take credit as a woman, but unfortunately, you have to do it, because a lot of people will erase history or rewrite it to meet their narrative. You have to create the narrative. Other than that, again, I say drag him for the filth, child. That's my main thing. Drag him. Call him out on all the stuff he's done, horrible things for the LGBT community, and how he's veiling his white supremacy with his religion. Call them out too.
Yeah, so what I was going to say, actually, though, I think that people have to remember that Kamala is playing a supporting role. So she's not going to be able to be as boastful as, you know, we would normally encourage her to be, because then it'll turn into, well, she's act like she's running for president, or she's trying to overshadow Joe. So her goal throughout the debate is going to be to amplify Joe and, you know, talk him up, which she does better than anybody else does, even Joe. So that's one of the things I think where she can leaning on her record is when the attacks do try to come her way. But honestly, I'm not expecting a lot of attacks on, for instance, her criminal justice record or anything like that. What they're going to attack her on is they're going to try to brand her as a socialist. They're going to try to brand her as a Bernie stooge, and they're going to try to brand her as being, for defund the police and for for violence and things like that. So that's where they're going to try to paint her. And I don't think that it's going to be relitigating who got locked up for weed or anything like that. I really don't believe that that's going to be the tenor. Be ready. If you stay ready, you got to get ready. But I think it's going to be much more trying to fight off the labels that she's an extremist, that she's an extreme left socialist, and things of that nature.
Reimagine the police. Oh, my bad. Sorry.
Yeah, no. And then the one other thing too is I think that she should focus on the fact that Mike Pence was or is head of the coronavirus task force. All the stuff that he did in Indiana, that's fine if you can find a way to work that in. But the bigger issue is the crisis that is actually plaguing us. This person who is going to be sitting across from her is head of the coronavirus task force as tasked by Trump. And yet there's an outbreak of coronavirus in the White House. And so that is something that she should be able to hammer home. And she has to do it in a way that doesn't seem cruel, but she can say, you know, don't tell me what you've done. Let's look at don't tell me what you're going to do. Let's look at what you've already done. This is how you have managed the coronavirus task force to date, and these are the results. So if she focuses very, very heavily on coronavirus and the unique role that Trump, by putting Pence in that position, he usurped the traditional role that FEMA plays and that the CDC plays and HHS and things of that nature. And so he has to own the coronavirus response. So she needs to go in there. I say, don't worry about Indiana and really focus on him completely botching the coronavirus response today. And so she could use her experience and lean on that as a senator on the Senate Judiciary Committee, on the Senate Intelligence Committee, on the Government and Homeland Affairs Committee, her legislation. That's where it becomes really appropriate to talk about, well, why didn't you send in, administration officials back in March, or why didn't you do X, Y, and Z? So that's where I think she could really, really hammer the point home and not come across like she's overshadowing Joe Biden. But that's really where I want to see the focus. She doesn't have to prove anything about what happened in California. Keep the focus on what's happening right now and her leadership and Joe Biden's leadership.
That was an excellent point right there, Reese. I think that would be a good kick in the throat for him. Because honestly, just looking at it right there, I mean, it's all up in our face. I mean, that's all we're talking about right now. And they're going to be talking about this for the next 14 days until he's up in Adam, if he is up in Adam. But talking about, we're going to go ahead and skip to the next subject. So what I want to talk about is something that you brought up actually earlier, Reese, as people who aren't willing to go out to vote because, you know, based off of what's going on with this debate, some people are feeling deterred. What I want to talk about is a study. I don't know if you guys saw the special on 4 News of Cambridge Analytica. What's basically going on is they had over 3.5 million African Americans marked as deterrents, people who they thought that they could deter from actually turning out to vote in 2016. They used targeted ads. They knew everything about you. They knew where you worked. They knew your personality traits. They knew exactly how much your gross income was. They knew certain information, and there was actually public information that they could buy. Trump spent $4.4 million into Facebook ads that they will not release to let us know, to the public, what those ads were and what they were using to target African Americans. And child, what do y'all think about this mess? Because I've been talking about this for about 2 or 3 days now. And I'm just gonna tell y'all, I'm nervous, I'm scared, and I'm upset, honestly. I feel completely violated.
I think, I knew it was coming because it was in the Mueller report. In the Robert Mueller report, it said how they had Russia, Cambridge Analytica, Trump's team, which had been working with Cambridge Analytica and working with Russia, because Brad Parscale, who just tried to kill himself a week ago, he had been working with Cambridge Analytica. I know, trigger warning, sorry, but that is, I'm just like shocked by that. He was harvesting data. And the reason they were able to do this, and Kenny, I'm sure you saw in the report, it's because it's legal to harvest that data here in America. It is not legal to harvest data like that in other countries. Some countries it is, but in other countries they have more protections, like they have more protections in England. We need to advocate for more protections once Biden and Harris are in the White House, because it's ridiculous that they can do that. So basically what they got was like 5,000 points of data information on each person. And as Kenny said, they were able to divide voters into 8 different sections. The 3 of the main ones were you either were in the Clinton camp, the Trump camp, or you decided you weren't going to vote, and they basically classified you as garbage, and then they didn't target you at all. And then in the middle, they had this group of people they would call persuadables. And those were the ones that they were saying, if this percentage of people are for Trump, they were going to try to persuade them to vote for Trump. If this percentage was persuadable and could be talked into not voting at all, they were going to deter them from doing that. I will say this, persuadables is It is a political term that has been used for a very long time, not as effectively as Russia and Cambridge Analytica did in the past. They never thought it was possible to really move people one way or the other. They always thought someone basically kind of knew where they were. Well, this last election, they really found out how they could deter people from voting by saying basically, Democrats are never going to do anything for you. And you can hear people repeating that talking point still. I'm sure every single person on this panel hears people still on Twitter saying, Democrats aren't going to do anything for you. Your life's always going to stay the same. Now, there is an essence of truth to the fact that it's been very difficult to move things forward. But Russia and Cambridge Analytica were able to use that and create voter apathy. And it was really effective. In one place alone, I think in Wisconsin, they were able to drop it by 19% participation. So while everyone thought that people weren't enthusiastic about Hillary Clinton, they were really persuaded out of voting. Kenny, do I think that's going to be happening this election? Yes. But do I think it will be as effective as last election? No. One of the reasons is because Kamala Harris is on the ticket. She's been engaging people. We've seen record numbers when she was added to the ticket. There is an interest in that. Also because of COVID and the disproportionate amount of Black and Latino people dying, that they see that there is so much more at stake for all of us this election. And also, guess what? Because COVID and a national pandemic is happening, we're all paying attention. I'm telling you right now, if the pandemic hadn't happened and hot summer had happened, we would all been like, what? There's an election happening? Oh, I didn't even realize. You know what I mean? But so we're all focusing. So I think that there's some good news, and I'll end with that.
Well, there was isn't like, okay, I forgot. I lost the stats. I had to save, but I forgot. Maybe I can still pull it up. Wasn't early voting turnout is actually at our record high right now for Democrats?
That's cool.
Yeah. It's right now there are 3 million people that have already there's more than 3 million people that have voted. I want people to be clear on that. Not all states report their data right away. And there's a great website called electionproject.github. Michael McDonald is the one who runs it, not the singer. He runs the website and he's tracking early voting like he did in 2016. So 3 million ballots have been successfully cast at this point, at least. And yes, Democrats are outdoing it by 2-1. So right now it looks like return ballots are 500,000 for Democrats and about 218,000 for Republicans. Then you have, and this is important, no party affiliation. That usually is independents. They're around 200,000. Well, guess what? They've broken for Joe and Kamala by at least 20%. So we are crushing an early voting. People should be thrilled. I'm thrilled about it every night. However, we still have this month to go. And I would love for all of you to push something that people have started pushing online, which is to be #BeAnOctober voter. Be an October voter. Because to me, there is no November. You got to vote now. And also, this is the last thing I'll say about this. It's because of the voter intimidation that Trump threatened. He might be in Walter Reed right now, and people might have an ounce of sympathy at this moment, but he still threatened our lives at the poll. He still threatened violent intimidation, which means that we need to go ahead and vote early and not do it on the day of, so we can try to avoid those clashes, which sounds so sad that I have to say that, but I worry about people's lives voting on the day of the election.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised being the fact that he told the Proud Boys to stand by. So there is that. What I would highly recommend is bring a polling buddy. I mean, get you a polling buddy, get you a polling friend. Because not only that, it makes you, I was about to say force, it makes you and that friend, you already know you already got one in the hole when it comes to voting. It helps carpool. See, because these even right now, even with early voting, I've seen lines wrapped around the block. So you might as well bring a polling buddy, so that way you guys can hold each other's place in line. If it's taking too long, you can go get you some food, etc. Make it an event. If we can sit out here, and I don't know if y'all follow Plies, but Plies really, he be speaking some facts. It's the only rapper I like, by the way, who can speak about politics. But He said, if you can stand in line for hours, get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, stand in line for hours for Jordans, why can't you vote? If y'all could be wrapped around the block waiting for a spicy, crispy chicken sandwich from Popeyes, why can't y'all vote? And these things are actually going to make a difference in your life. So that's one thing I love. And again, bring a polling buddy, do what you got to do, bring a friend, encourage everybody that you have, make it fun. You guys, this is not a boring thing. Polling, I mean, voting is a very fun thing, actually. I don't know if y'all remember the Get Out to Vote, the Souls to the Polls. It's what was it? Is it
Vote or
to
Die?
the Polls? No, not that. That wasn't fun. That didn't sound fun.
Okay. Well, that was my first time voting. My bad.
Okay. Okay. Go ahead, Reese.
Oh, Sydney can go. Sydney had her thing up.
Yeah, sure. Just to piggyback off of what you were saying, Kenny. Yeah, this is an event. Like I have to tell people that, you know, voting is literally free, y'all. It literally costs you nothing but time. And it can literally, it's literally going to be a life changer for everyone once we vote this administration in, this Biden-Harris administration in, and we get Trump out of here. You know, it doesn't cost you anything but a few hours of your day. And for most folks out there, you can talk to your employer and get time off to go vote if you need to. I know that with most full-time jobs, I know that that's a standard. And even with some part-time gigs, that's a standard as well. But as Kenny said, this should be fun. You should be excited about wanting to participate in this democracy that we have. That is, that we're holding on to by a thread, y'all, for real. Because if we can't get out this time, there is a chance we may not have a democracy after this. And I want to stress that. As far as voter intimidation, as far as cybersecurity is concerned, I come from tech. I know I know how these algorithms work. I know what's going on with Cambridge Analytica. I come from tech communications, tech sales. So I have a very good scope of this kind of technology. And I will let y'all know everything that double, triple, quadruple check anything that you see on the internet. Anything that you see, I would even call, your Democratic parties. I would stick with, the .orgs as opposed to, the .coms. I would look at, where information is coming from, and anything that you see on social media that looks suspicious, you need to double check it. You need to have 3 sources at least. I would strongly recommend just, being vigilant. Again, we are being attacked, cyber, with our cybersecurity essentially is being attacked here by foreign, entities. So again, that's just pretty much that. Those would be the tips that I would give to voters. But again, yeah, this is exciting, y'all. Get riled up. We're really doing some major things here. So I think we got this.
Yeah, the one thing I wanted to just point out to people is that you might not have voter precincts in the same way that you did in 2016. A lot of places are having voting centers, voting super centers. And so that's just something to keep in mind. Make sure that if you do plan to vote in person, or even if you want to vote early, that you find out where your polling place is. I know in my area, normally it would be right across the street or like a couple of, a block or 2 down. Well, now they're doing these voting super centers. And so there are only so many locations throughout the entire county. So you might have to make arrangements for your transportation. And as a result, make sure, again, if you are planning to vote on a voting day, that you understand that you might have to make different transportation arrangements that you normally have. If that's going to be an issue, then you might want to consider early voting. So these are just some of the things to consider. Make sure, again, I'm not sure if we're going to talk about this in the next segment, but in North Carolina, for instance, the rejection rate of Black ballots is twice that of white ballots. Now, white people are submitting their ballots, that's 4.2%. So that is still a large number. It's still a large number, because that can make the difference in terms of the margin, especially with more people voting by mail. So just make sure that you are properly filling out your ballot, track your ballot, because in most cases, you can rectify any problems with your ballot. For instance, if your ballot has a signature issue or a witness issue, you can normally rectify that. So that's why you have to track it. Make sure that you're filling in the bubbles properly, depending on where it is. Make sure you're using the right color ink. Make sure that you're returning in the right envelope. Make sure that you're not signing stuff where you're not supposed to sign it, and make sure that you all do sign it where you're supposed to sign it. So these are just some of the logistics, the voter education logistics that we have to stress, because we want your vote to count when you actually submit your vote. And then, try to work the polls if you can work the polls. But Maya put together this great guide in Dame magazine that I try to press it. I'm going to go look up the link and share it in the chat, that has all this great information. But the most important thing is have a voting plan. Double check the information. For instance, in Texas, just this week, Governor Abbott actually decreased the number of ballot drop boxes. Now they don't allow no excuse absentee ballots anyway, so you don't have this large, you don't have as large of a population of people voting absentee mail, but you have to check things like this in terms of how can you return your ballot, where can you return your ballot. You might have to make transportation arrangements if you don't feel comfortable mailing it, or you might want to mail it. Don't procrastinate, think I'm just going to drop it off at a drop box, and then you have issues where they take them away or whatever the situation may be. So there are a lot of moving parts. It's not to say I don't want you to be overwhelmed, but we just want you to be cognizant of what it means to vote in 2020. It means that you have to make sure that you're following the directions and that you're being vigilant.
Hey man, I couldn't agree with you more. This is literally an inflection point right now. We really have to figure out what we're going to do in terms of voting, figuring out how we're going to vote, and literally encouraging everyone else to vote. Because again, there's so much voting suppression that's basically going on right now, and they're literally trying to take away your right, your voice, everything that you have right now. Everything is on the line. This isn't an election to sit out of right now. And honestly, does anybody have any last remarks on voting before we completely wrap it up?
When you go vote earlier in person, put your mask on. That's all.
That part.
Yeah.
That part right there.
I would also say that there will be lawsuits like what Reese just mentioned in Texas, what just happened. There's already a gang of lawyers suing Abbott right now for what he's doing, because my God, even though the Voting Rights Act has been gutted, what he did is, as Beto said, voter suppression on steroids. So I believe that Abbott might even lose. So just keep track of some of the lawsuits that are happening, and because they might be forced to expand the drop off. But if you plan your vote far enough ahead of time, you can still make sure you get your ballot in on time anyways. That's it.
One thing I wanted to say, I know that during the debate, I believe it was, Trump said that ballots were being tossed out and ballots were found in a river and things like that. That's not true. That's a voter suppression tactic. They want you to believe, they want you to not have trust in the system. They want you to not have trust in your ballot. If you absolutely feel like you don't trust absentee ballots, then fine, go on ahead and vote early and vote in person on election day. But just understand that absentee ballot voting is safe. It is not corrupt. And as long as you follow the directions, your vote should count. You can track that your vote is counted, okay? So, and it's also a paper trail. So don't believe all the propaganda about votes being thrown out, votes being tossed. This is something that obviously we will have to be looking out for on election day, because sometimes there are irregularities and things of that nature. But what they're trying to do by saying things like that is to try to sow confusion and distrust in the system and make you feel like it doesn't even matter. Why bother? Because my vote's just going to get tossed out. So don't believe that kind of stuff. However you vote, just make sure that you vote properly. That's the most important thing. And AJ asks, is there a central website to track our ballot, or does it differ state to state? Yes, everything differs by state, even by county. And so, vote.org is a great place. Maya's guide also offers resources and things like that. Your Secretary of State typically is who administers at the state level your voter data, but then it's actually who maintains it. but elections are administered by your local elected officials. So that can include, sometimes it's county, sometimes it's elected people. It really varies. And so it's impossible to give one size fits all information. So find the information that's specific for your area using the iwillvote.com, vote.org, or Maya's Dame magazine. If you do that, then it'll steer you right to where you need to go. But don't assume that what they're doing in Florida is what they're doing in North Carolina, what they're doing in Maryland. It's not one size fits all. And don't assume what they're doing in the next county over applies to you either. You have to look up the information for your specific county. Okay.
I would also say the quickest way to do that is the majority of states have a Secretary of State. Not all of them do, but the majority of them do. You go to your state secretary's site and you put in there tracking the ballot. A lot of them will have something on their site telling you. There are some places like Colorado and California, they use ballot tracks, which is a separate site, and it's a fabulous site. Georgia now uses ballot tracks. I'm like suspicious. I'm like, they did something right for once in their life. But go to your secretary. If you just can't remember all the information, start first with your Secretary of State site. And then if you know what county, then you can move into the county and then you can find out. But I would just call your county office too and say, I am scared. I want to mail in my ballot right now. When can I call you to make sure that you got it? They're not going to count your ballots. They're going to process your ballots, which means they're going to check your signature verification and then they're banking that. They'll usually tell you if your ballot has been rejected, and then you should have time to go and fix or cure your ballot in time. So that's why you vote early, because you cannot do that. To me, this is what I'm going to say to everybody. To me, after September 20th, you're voting too late. You are. I know that early voting in some states starts like around September, like October 18th in some places. We'll vote that first day. Do not wait until the last week in October. You're going to get in messy areas. Trump is trying to throw out every ballot that gets to the county's office the day after, or after midnight, or after that morning. Believe me, those ballots will be in dispute. But if your ballot gets in there beforehand, like November 2nd, you got a great chance of your ballot actually counting. If you get it in sooner, you have a great chance of making sure that your signature has been verified and that it is indeed going to be counted. So that's it.
Speaking of, we're talking about voting and stuff like that. Anybody who tells you not to vote, just block them. It's just that quick. Get rid of all the deterrents in your life, all that negativity. Just go ahead and block them immediately. And for those people who think that, oh, I live in a red state, so I'm not going to vote. Vote anyway. Every vote counts. Every vote matters. So that's literally the only thing I have to say. Any closing remarks before we go ahead and wrap it up, you guys?
Yeah, because you mentioned red states. There are actually a lot of red states where there are some key Senate races. Mike Espy in Mississippi has pulled close to Cindy Hyde-Smith. That's
Warnock in Georgia.
You have Warnock, you have John Ossoff, you also have Jamie Harrison in South Carolina. Probably a little bit more of a stretch goal would be like Adrian, I believe, Perkins in Louisiana. You have people throughout the country, even potentially in Alaska and Kansas. There are all these potential Senate pickups. And so don't think just because the electoral college votes are likely to go to, Trump, for instance, if you're in a red state, that you don't need to vote, because you might be able to tip the scales in the Senate. The way that the Senate majority runs through red states, it runs through Texas, it runs through Georgia, it runs through North Carolina. Tom Tillis just got COVID, and Jamie Harrison and all these other, so don't take it for granted. Don't ignore red state versus blue state. Make sure that you're voting, because and for instance, in Texas, is something that Roland Martin talked about yesterday. They have the potential to flip the state legislator Democratic. And so that's another reason why Governor Abbott is suppressing the votes. And so throw out the red state, throw out the blue state, throw out the purple state, and just vote down ballot. Okay. The House, the Senate are so critical. And so and yeah, if you can phone bank, if you can text bank, if whatever the way that you can volunteer, but at a bare minimum, just talk to your family, talk to your friends, and just make sure that you're talking to them and keeping them engaged in the process.
6 feet, wear a mask.
And get you some of these these to-go hand sanitizers. Trust me, this saves your life. I refill this thing every time I leave the house. Literally, if you're going to be in line, if you're going to be voting, if you're touching mail, etc., just go ahead, just a little bit right there. You're good to go. Well, this has been a great episode of another Biden Watch, and we will see you guys next time. Y'all have a good night, okay?
Biden Harris.
BH Dub, you already know.
Biden Harris, my bad.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.